Welcome to Five Guys Movies and Fries, where two of us are always missing. We talk about movies that nobody watches. My name is Jeff.
I'm Joe.
And this is Knack.
Today we are talking about the movie Possum. Hold on, I probably should have had some information about it before I started recording here. This would have been my recommendation here.
Would have been. It is.
This movie is a 2018 horror movie written and directed by Matthew Holness, starring Sean Harris and Alun Armstrong. I guess just a quick little overview of the movie. It's a movie about a puppet maker trying to get rid of his puppet, but it refuses to go away. There's also obviously, spoiler alert, a kidnapped child thrown in the mix, some dark history between the lead character and, I'm assuming, his uncle. I believe it was his uncle.
Yes.
Very obscure movie. This is kind of what I like to see out of a horror film, where they, instead of it just being like jump scares or just like, let's show some gore, they like use horror as a way to tell a different story, and it elevates that story. And I think that's definitely the case here. I think the darker undertones of this flick really bring the horror of it to light. But I'll wait until my roundabout here. Why don't we start with you, Knack? What did you think of this?
I've really liked the movie and how it pretty much used the puppet to sort of deal with the trauma he was dealing with.
I had some questions about the puppet. So was Jeff, you said he was a puppet maker. I thought he was a puppeteer.
Both. He made the puppet.
Oh, okay. See, one of my issues with the movie is I'm wondering what's the backstory with the puppet. Like, was he a guy who worked on, like, he was a puppeteer on, like, a children's show where he had all normal puppets? And obviously on Wikipedia it says he's a disgraced puppeteer or something along those lines. So it's like, one day did he just show up with a spider with a human head puppet and said, let's try this one, and then he got fired? Do you have any ideas on what's the backstory with him?
I don't think it's ever very clear about why he was let go. I mean, one look at that puppet, it's pretty clear why they probably would have let him go. I think they leave it up to the imagination, and that definitely plays into it a lot. Like, I know on my watch of the movie, the fact that I didn't really know why he was let go really kind of lent itself to the mystery of the flick pretty much overall.
That kind of works for the movie too, because it makes you think he did something heinous with that child or abducted the child or something.
Mm.
So it's sort of a bait and switch to make you think he's the villain.
Was he not? I read it as he's the one who adopted the kid.
Maybe
abducted.
Yeah, abducted. Yeah. We're talking about Sean Harris Phillip, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Knack, you've seen this at least twice, right?
Yes.
What is your interpretation of this movie? Because this movie is so esoteric, and there's very little in the way of dialogue and story. Like, what is going on with the story, in your opinion?
Honestly, I'm pretty not full of fucking answers myself.
No?
No.
I thought it was what's his name? Sorry, Maurice. I thought the uncle had
Morris.
abused.
It is Maurice.
Yeah.
He just says it like Morris. Yeah.
I thought the sort of the conclusion was that Morris had abused Philip as a child.
Oh, definitely. The way I saw it is, it was just like the trauma being passed, like
it's a vicious or a circle or a cycle.
Exactly. So like Philip was becoming like Maurice, and that's why like we see a lot of things carry from one to the other, like the smoking and the puppets themselves. And and just the way that they act. That's why I assume that he's the one who abducted the kid. And a lot of this movie was him struggling with the fact that he abducted the kid and that he was becoming like Maurice.
Okay.
At least that's how I saw it. Because Maurice, in a weird way, almost seems like he's not only looking out for Philip in an odd way, but that he really understands what Philip's going through. There's that scene where Philip tries to put Possum into the fire. And in that scene, not only is Maurice like very carefully being like, yo, this kid is missing. You should probably, well, he says lay low in a different scene, but he's like talking to him about it and trying to address it with him and like offers him the cigarette and almost seems supportive. And I think it's because Maurice can see that Philip is becoming just like him. And that's what he wants is for him to become just like him. So he's...
Gotcha. So you thought Maurice was sort of being a role model to Philip?
Yeah, in a weird way. Like, there's plenty of times where I thought Maurice... Because Maurice seems so angry at him throughout a lot of the movie. Like, there's a lot of scenes where I expected Maurice to be violent with him, and he wasn't. Mm-hmm. And just seeing him bounce around like that, I think. Sorry, this movie's still really fresh, and I'm trying to parse everything that I took in when I was watching it.
Yeah, gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. But for some reason, my interpretation at the end was that he was letting him out of the trunk. I thought maybe they were in Maurice's side of the house or apartment or whatever their situation was.
Yeah, Maurice asked him several times throughout the movie if he's going in there. Like if he's going in the room. So I was... if I had to like guess at the events, it would be Philip seeing the kid on the train and then following the kid after he gets off the train and then abducting the kid and like bringing him to the house and locking him up and then just like putting that out of his mind. Like it seems like he's it seems like he's blacking out a lot. Yeah. And I think him trying to get rid of the puppet is like a metaphor for him trying not to be like Maurice was. So he's like avoiding the room and he's like trying to pretend like it isn't happening, just the same as he's like getting rid of the puppet and trying to remove that part of his life. So that's why he eventually lets the kid go. He just like opens up the chest or trunk and just lets him leave. Is him finally acknowledging the fact that like he even has the kid in the trunk and finally acknowledging like who he was becoming. And
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's the plot description on Wikipedia doesn't it's not definitive on who had abducted the child.
Yeah, I mean, this is just my interpretation of it. It could have very easily been Maurice did it and Philip wasn't aware. Huh. But the movie just read to me like it was really Philip becoming like Maurice and struggling with the fact that he was becoming like Maurice and he was like blacking out and like trying to get rid of the puppet. And like Maurice is like trying to get into that part of his life too. I think them talking about puppets and what the puppets represent in the story is a reflection of what's actually happening in the story. So like you see Maurice with like an arguably well-made puppet. And then you look at like Phillips and it's just dark and weird and disgusting. And the original story was described to have been made with roadkill. That it was made with roadkill. And if you look at it, you can see like chunks of fur in it. Like, but he's like, Maurice is very interested in the puppet itself and like how it works. And he's like telling him that he wants to see how the legs work. And I think that's him trying to be a part of what Philip has going on with the kid.
Yeah. In a way, it's like the puppet is like a manifestation of their dark secret that they like to abduct children. Mm-hmm. It's a great puppet. Like I love the puppet. I'm seeing here on Wikipedia that Holness is an arachnophobe, and I am as well. So in
Same.
horror, I love it, but I hate it. I wish there would have been more, more puppet action. It's clear it's a pretty low budget, so they couldn't have it, the puppet actually crawling around and stuff.
I personally really like that they didn't. I think the fact that there was so many times when I thought there was going to be like a jump scare where he's like looking in the face of the puppet, and I half expected the puppet to like look up and there to be like sharp strings in the background and whatever. And instead it's all very subtle. Like you just see that the puppet's still in the room through the reflection in a mirror. You know what I mean?
That was anticlimactic to me. All those times that happened.
Oh, I loved it.
I wanted it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me on my watch, I think the fact that he kept acting restrained in those scenes made the later scenes when you finally see the puppet start to interact with him much more terrifying to me. Like it's such a small thing to like see its legs come from the top of that garage door, and like clearly it's just legs on sticks, but like because you constantly expect it to move and it doesn't move. So when it finally does move, it's like chilling. It
has more impact.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. You got a different do you watch a lot of horror movies?
Yeah, I mean, I like vintage horror, old school horror. It's, I agree with your theory that, what you don't see can be more terrifying than what you do see. It's sort of like a Lovecraft thing. But I just wanted more. I just wanted a little something more.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, there was so many times where I thought I knew what to expect from this movie. Like I was like, oh, I know what's going to happen in this scene, and then it didn't happen. There was so many times that happened. So like by the end, I was like, all right, well, clearly nothing's going to happen, and then things did happen. Kind of caught me by surprise.
There was a pretty good montage where he was getting chased by Possum. I did like that.
I'm looking through the Wikipedia here. I didn't realize that Matthew Holness worked on Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, which is one of my favorite.
He is Garth Marenghi.
This was made by. That's who Matthew Holness is?
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up! Oh no!
It's the sequel to Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Oh yeah, it absolutely is.
Oh my god!
You would expect Matt Berry or Richard Ayoade to appear in this, like all those British guys always cast their friends. Why didn't he get one of those, like Matt Berry?
Oh, this is so good. That puts this movie up on another level for me.
I don't know how you can say that just because it's directed by someone.
I didn't realize that he did Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, and having absorbed a lot of that show just from multiple watch throughs, just seeing him go from something like that where he's making faux horror and like obscure comedy to something this deep is
he's like the British Jordan Peele.
Yeah, he's like done work on Doctor Who.
I didn't know that.
I think.
I thought he disappeared until this movie.
I don't know. I'm like trying to parse what's happening here. Yeah, now I'm super curious about him. I did not realize that's who this was. That's so funny. Bunch of shit I've never heard of. Year of the Rabbit. He did Year of the Rabbit. Yeah, I don't know any of this other stuff. Cemetery Junction, Time Trumpet. Yeah, wow. Crazy.
I really like Sean Harris's facial expressions during this movie.
Yo, Sean Harris killed it in this movie, in my opinion. I thought he was really good in this movie.
He's always like he has something sour in his mouth, or he's on the verge of tears.
Just his whole demeanor is
even his haircut is weird.
Yeah, he's very off-putting. Like the way he runs with like his hands like held in front of him. Like it's like his
You're
hands
right, yeah.
can't leave his front space. And I'm sure that somehow plays into what's going on with his character too.
I read he method acted, or that Russian what is it, Stanislavski? He did like method acting. He was always in character on set.
I would imagine he'd have to be to do a performance like that. Like I felt like he was that character. Like truly.
Yeah.
I thought he did a fantastic job in this movie. Both him and Alun Armstrong. There's only 2 people in this movie. You know what I mean? So like you're
Except the kid.
Right from
the kid and the school guy. There's
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the principal.
Yeah, those scenes were super upsetting. Just like him standing outside of the school looking all creepy, or like at the very beginning when he goes up to the kid on the train, he's like, "What were you drawing?" It's like, I'm surprised that kid didn't sock him. So, some guy like that came up to me on a bus out of nowhere. What were you drawing? Yeah, I don't know. There's a couple scenes where we kind of see another side of him. There's like that bit where him and Maurice are sitting up from each other, and he's like holding the lighter up, and he's like, "Why don't you just burn, Maurice?"
Yeah.
You just kind of see this more violent side of him.
He was fighting back, even though Maurice was his abuser. Yeah.
I think it's implied that he came there for some reason. Like he wasn't always living there.
He returned home, yeah. I wasn't a big fan of the picture book. So did he write that as a child? It looked a little too perfect. Like it looked a little too well designed to be like a person with mental illnesses, their scribblings. Like it looked like a very well designed, creepy book.
Yeah, it did. I agree.
And I feel like it should have just been, insane scribblings, not like a
well-published book.
Yeah, it was cutesy and, charcoal etched and everything.
I feel like he might have done it as an adult.
The wiki says he did it as a kid, or at least wrote it and illustrated it as a young boy.
Okay.
You know what? Yeah, because the words were like paper clipped onto the pages. So he wrote the story as a child.
Right.
And then he turned it into a picture book. So maybe that does make sense in the story. Because he's a puppeteer, maybe he's an artist too. I changed my mind on that completely. I want to point out that this movie grossed $33,000.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's like the budget couldn't have been less than like $20,000 to get 2 huge actors. I mean, there's almost nothing to it besides the prop and the book and locations and, the actors.
I know I mention it in almost every one of these episodes we do, but The Lighthouse was brought to mind when I was watching this for that reason specifically, because it's just 2 people in one location.
That's a good point, yeah. This movie reminds me of Eraserhead a lot.
Yeah, I guess I get that. It's
uncanny, yeah.
Yeah, Eraserhead was killer. It was really good. Yeah, I don't know. I like this is the kind of horror I live for. This is exactly the kind of horror I want. I feel like horror without something behind it, you know what I mean? Like horror just for horror's sake doesn't really slap the same way. And that's coming from somebody who was like raised on Friday the 13th movies and slashers in general.
Right, yeah.
But those aren't the ones that sit with me. Movies like this are the ones that sit with me. Like Hereditary, dude, Hereditary got me deep, bro. Like there's just certain ones that really sink in. And I think because this was a horror movie on top of the incredibly dark story that was being told in general.
Yeah, I do appreciate that it has like a psychological component. It's about it's horror, but it's about childhood trauma.
Yeah.
how did you even discover this knack, or whoever discovered it?
I did. There's just a YouTuber that I really like. He specifically covers horror movies, and he did a video about this. And then I watched the trailer, and then I did a tiny bit of research and was like, yo, I really need to see this movie. And then it just sat on a back burner forever. And I think part of that is because I legit am scared of spiders as well, and saw that it was like a spider puppet. And I was like, that's a thing I don't need in my life ever. It just kind of kept putting the movie off. This seemed like the perfect reason to finally get it watched.
Well, how long ago did you see that YouTube movie?
Oh, God, years ago. This has been sitting on my shelf for 3 years now, I think.
So this is a genuine shelf of shame.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is something that I've been like, I've talked about watching this movie for a long time, and I keep wanting to watch it and just never getting around to it.
Well, but then how did Knack get?
I just ended up watching it before he did.
Okay.
It was on a recommend. I think the recommended list on Amazon, and I ended up putting it down like maybe a year and a half ago.
Gotcha. So it said people who often watch Garth Marenghi's Dark Place also watch Possum.
Yeah, that's so crazy. This movie's really good. It's not to say that I don't think that Matthew Holness can make something good, especially now that I understand who he is, but this is just such a change of pace, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie, I assumed that it was going to be at least decent or something that would be fresh, I guess, just in regards to the things I've been watching lately. But I just didn't expect it to be as good as it was. I was really surprised by this movie. I don't think it was perfect, but I think it was pretty good. I think it probably could have toned down those noises a little bit. I'm so sick of horror movies having to have just high-pitched noises all the time. There's better ways to build anxiety than just screeching in my ear.
Is that part of the soundtrack? I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of high-pitched whines. I can understand why you'd want to include them in a movie, and I can understand where scenes would be better because of it, but it's just a thing that I don't much care for in horror movies. I think it's because I have sensitive ears, I guess, or something. It makes me grind my teeth. You know what I'm saying? Plus, it drives my dog nuts. She was going bananas when I was watching this movie.
The score really overstayed its welcome.
Yeah, I agree. I think if they would have just cut, like, I would have been okay with the score staying the way it was, but just dialing it back a little bit. Just trim it. You know what I mean? We don't need that through 70% of the movie. Like 40% of the movie, I think, is enough. If even.
Yeah, the soundtrack in total is like 75 minutes. It's almost as long as the movie itself.
That's what I'm saying. This movie would have, I think, cut a little bit deeper had it been a little bit quieter. Especially with as good as the acting was. You know what I mean? Like, if you just put Sean Harris and Alun Armstrong in a room and just not had that fucking noise and just let them play off each other, I think it would have been just fine.
I don't know. They don't play off each other that much. A lot of this movie is almost no dialogue, and I can't see like Philip walking through the woods carrying a puppet with no score. It just doesn't have that same punch.
Yeah, I get that. This movie has a lot of Sean Harris walking weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. He really understood the assignment. I really feel like he did. He just came in and gave it his all. I love to see shit like that. I'm looking through his filmography right now. He's been in once again a bunch of shit I haven't seen. He was King Arthur in Green Knight.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Wow.
Oh, but yeah. Now that I'm like thinking of the voice of King Arthur, definitely Sean Harris. Totally.
I think the only other thing I've seen him in is Prometheus.
Yeah, I put Prometheus right out of my brain after I watched it.
Yeah.
I like watched it and I'm like, I don't need to save that.
He was in The King. My mistake.
Yeah, and then Spencer too, which is another fucking shelf of shame for me. I've been meaning to watch Spencer since it dropped, and I still haven't gotten around to that either. I've heard it's really good. Yeah, fucking Sean Harris, man. What a great movie. Only 33,000. That's wild. It's really wild. I don't know. I could see me showing this movie to people and them really not liking this movie. I could see people not liking this. I could see Will not liking this. Probably a good thing he didn't watch it.
I was gonna say the opposite. I thought maybe he could have handled this because it's so esoteric and sparse. Like it's not that shocking. Besides, a couple scenes towards the end.
I just think he doesn't like not feeling good. I think if he watches anything that makes him feel bad in any way, he just really gets turned off.
Okay. Didn't he enjoy Color Out of Space?
He did, but Color Out of Space, well, I guess it was fun until it wasn't fun. But even when it wasn't fun, it was still kind of fun. Color Out of Space was kind of all over the place. This is just depressing and dark.
Yeah.
Like, I would never expect Will to watch, like, Manchester by the Sea. You know what I mean? Like, if I recommended that movie, he'd be like, no, I'm good, G. He did watch Grave of the Fireflies, though. I don't know if you've seen that movie. You want to talk about a punch in the heart?
I haven't. No, that's one of the anime Studio Ghibli movies.
I think it's Studio Ghibli, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's an incredibly depressing movie. It feels weaponized.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's very good. I highly recommend it, but be ready. Just know what you're getting into.
Yeah, I bet I'd love it. I might just buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you would. I think you could appreciate it. Anybody have anything else to add on this boy here?
No, I don't. Other than, it's creepy as fuck.
Yeah, I didn't have much else myself.
Yeah, I'm looking at the inspirations for this, and I don't know what either of them are. I'm very curious now.
It said Nosferatu.
Yeah, German Expressionism, but he mentioned Dead of Night and George Romero's Martin, and I don't know what either of those are.
Yeah, I haven't seen those.
Yeah, these look real old. 1945. Whoo. Yeah. I guess we can hit ratings.
Yeah, let's do it.
Why don't you lead?
I don't want to go first because I think my rating's probably lower than your guys's.
How about you, Nick? What you got?
We should start with the low ratings. I give it an 8. 8 out of 10.
I'm right there with you.
Deductions only for, I guess, just because this kind of a movie isn't for everybody. Like you kind of need to go in with, you need to go in with a preparation of being frightened or fucking even just sort of confused.
Well, and big old trigger warning on the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like there's some very dark themes going on. Like this is not a movie I'd want to watch with like family. This is barely a movie I'd want to watch with friends. I was going to watch this with you, and I was like, I feel like I should probably watch this movie by myself. I was going to watch it with Snoot. Thank God I didn't watch it with Snoot. Very glad I watched this movie on my own is all I'm saying.
Yeah. And then the other point deducted for the overpowering music.
Yeah. I'd give it like a... You go ahead, Jeff. No, you go ahead.
I'd be right there with an 8 out of 10 as well for pretty much the same reasons. I felt like the score was, I think overpowering is the right word. I think there was just a little too much. Just a little too much. Yeah, and it was just It was dark, and I feel like I don't know. I don't know if I'm correct in wanting to know who put the kid in the trunk. I don't know if it would have added to the movie if it was clear who put the kid in the trunk.
Yeah.
But I feel, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm usually not one to be like, I wish there was an answer, or I don't want things to be ambiguous. But I'm wondering if in this movie, would it have been better if it was less ambiguous? That's a question I have, at least. But yeah, I'd give it an 8 out of 10 for sure.
Yeah, my original interpretation that it was Maurice who put the kid in the trunk, and it was sort of a twist, a Shyamalan twist, that it was Maurice all along, and that. But with Jeff's theory, I think I like this movie a little more than I did. But it's still, to me, it's like a 6 out of 10. I feel like it's really unfocused. The score is overpowering. I don't like that there's all these hard cuts, and it leaves you wondering, are we going from place to place, or present to the past to present, or something like that. It's a lot of just shots of a guy walking through the woods, and some people think that that's it builds towards the end, and there's a big payoff towards the end. But I just want more. I want more of the puppet, more of the story, a few more answers, which I feel like when movies do give you answers, then possibly there's more questions to be asked as well. So I feel like with more of a story, they could have explored more about the psychological implications of abuse, and you'd be left with even more to chew on. I just feel like that this movie's, it's just sparse. Like there's not enough for me, and I wouldn't
just not enough meat.
Not enough meat. I need more spider meat.
I get that. This is definitely one of those movies where if I talk to somebody and they were like, I really did not care for that, I'd be like, understandable. I totally get it. But yeah, I think the only thing, if I could pluck one thing out of this movie technically to really point at, it would just be fucking Sean Harris murdering this role. I was so pulled in by Sean Harris. He did such a good job.
And I do want to mention that there's a lot that I like about it. Like, I like that some of the jump scares are anticlimactic. I just want some of them to actually have a reason. Yeah. And I like the puppet design. I like Sean Harris's acting. It's just, I just need a little more.
Yeah. Well, what do we got for our next one there? Oh, wait, go ahead.
Whose pick is next?
Mine.
Okay.
I'm last in line, and I'm quite okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to be last in line for these runs. So we are going with something that I'm really excited to see. It is a satirical black comedy drama from 1976 called Network.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And the only thing I'm really familiar with this in this movie is that there's a speech that I've heard sampled in many, many songs from quite a few artists, honestly. And anybody I've mentioned the movie to just has that has seen it has high praise for it. Like even still relevant today from 1976. But I am ready to see this movie and fucking take it off that shelf.
I'm happy as hell you picked this.